So, as mentioned previously, the case study that we are going to be looking at is Montserrat. Now, Montserrat, as it says here, is a small island in the Caribbean. It's a volcanic area located in the south of the island on the Soufriere Hills called Chances Peak. Now, before 1995, the volcano hadn't erupted for over 300 years. It had been dormant. In 1995, it started giving off a few warning signs of an eruption, and it wasn't until kind of 1997 when the most intense eruptions took place. So, what were the effects? Now, to do this piece of information, what I want you to do is to picture your house. I'm going to teach you a little technique here of kind of using a place that you know well and pasting images onto those places. So I want you to imagine you're walking up to your front door, and on your front door is the word Montserrat. Somebody with spray paint has written Montserrat all over your front door, big red writing. You walk into your living room. As you go into the living room, you look at the television. The television looks like it's covered in kind of dust or ash. So you walk over, and in it somebody's written the word Plymouth with the finger right into the telly. And what they've also done is drawn a little ghost in the corner. And it goes, woo, as it comes out at you. You look out the window, and as you look out the window, you see this little person walking past, little old man. He's got a stick over his shoulder with a little bag on, and he's hunched back, and he's walking along, looking very sad. Has a little look in the living room window and keeps walking past your house. You go from there and you go into the kitchen, and when you go in the kitchen, you open the kitchen cupboard, and inside is a tiny little box about 6 inches. It's made out of wood, and somebody has inscribed the number 23 in, and it's kind of in the shape of a coffin. You walk from the kitchen, you go upstairs. As you go upstairs, on your bed are a pile of sticks. And these pile of sticks, for some reason, you put your hands in your pocket, you pull out a lighter, and you light these sticks, and this little fire gets set away in your bedroom. You go from there into the bathroom, sat on the toilet, massive, big, fat fella. He's got one of them Australian hats with little corks dangling down, Hawaiian shirt. He's sat there with a suitcase in front. He's got his hand on his cheek, and he's just shaking his head, and he's just sick as a chip. You go over to the sink, you look in the mirror, and in the mirror there's a reflection of yourself, but your reflection has a little piece of grass sticking out of your mouth, so you look like a little farmer. And you realise that your feet are starting to get very wet. You look in the sink, and somebody's shoved something down the plug hole, and all this water is kind of overflowing from the sink. You turn that off, you go back into your bedroom where this fire's burning away, and you notice out your bedroom window that there's an aeroplane parked in your garden. And you look down the street, and there's another aeroplane parked in the garden, and another one further down. So, why is this relevant? How has this got anything to do with the Montserrat eruption? Well, if you look at this information here about the effects of the eruption, what I've tried to do is create an image for each of these bullet points and then paste it onto a place within your house. So you walk up to your front door, and the door has Montserrat on because that's the name of the place that we're going to use as a case study. You go into your living room, and on the television is the word Plymouth written in kind of dust. And the reason why the dust was there is because after the eruption, the capital city of Plymouth was covered in ash, and it became a ghost town, hence the little ghost going woo out the corner. You look out your living room window, and as you look out the living room window, this little old fella with his stick on a little bag is to represent this homeless person, because obviously as a result of the eruption, all the villages were destroyed, and therefore people were made homeless. The kitchen cupboard with the little coffin with the number 23 in was because 23 people were killed. You went to your bedroom, you lit some sticks on your bed because there were forest fires caused by the lava and so on. You went into the bathroom, sat on your toilet, was a big fat fellow with a Hawaiian shirt and so on. He was sick as a chip because the tourist industry was stopped. People could no longer go on holiday to Montserrat. You looked in the mirror, and the image looking back was yourself with a piece of grass, looking like a farmer because the farmland was destroyed. Went to the sink, as you say, the water falling onto your feet was because floods were caused by the valleys being blocked by ash. So your plug hole was being blocked. The valleys were blocked by ash, which then had a result of causing floods. The final one is the industries were crippled. Now, as I've said, you need to know about the causes of volcanoes, you need to know about the effects of volcanoes, but also the responses, because that's a kind of question that might throw in there. What are the responses to a volcanic eruption that you have studied? You would talk about Montserrat, and you would talk about these responses here and here, and this little bit at the bottom of the page here. So how did the local people respond? Well, they evacuated over 5,000 people abroad. Some came to Britain. Others moved to the north of the island. If you look here, the north of the island was clear. It was down here in the south of the island, where the volcano is, and then all the kind of surrounding villages and so on end up getting destroyed and affected. But people could move to the north. Now the problem with that was that there wasn't much there in the north of the island. There were also riots occurring because people felt that the British government weren't doing enough. So how did the governments in Montserrat and Britain respond? Well, they gave £41 million of aid. They provided temporary shelters for people to kind of live in. They gave money to the people to help them move to other countries, and they gave free flights out of the island. Now these responses can also be divided into short-term responses, in other words the responses that happen kind of straight away on the kind of hours and maybe a couple of days after, and long-term responses, things that happened after that. So in the short term, they evacuated people. The abandonment of the capital city, everybody moved from the capital city, Plymouth. The British government gave them money for compensation and redevelopment, and unemployment rose due to the collapse of the tourist industry. Because the tourist industry collapsed and a lot of people used to work in there, that then meant that lots of people ended up unemployed. What are the long-term responses then? There was an exclusion zone set up in the volcanic region. People weren't allowed within a particular area. There was a volcanic observatory to monitor the volcano in the future and to see whether it was going to erupt further. They had to build new roads and a new airport was built. The services in the north of the island were expanded because, I say, all of the resources were in the south of the island. There was nothing much in the north. They had to change that as a result of people moving to the north of the island. The presence of the volcano actually then started to result in the growth of tourism. People started to visit that area to visit the volcano. Now, as it says in this paragraph here, you've got to be careful when reading the questions, because they may say things like describe the effects of a volcanic eruption, in which you could mention all of the effects above, whereas sometimes they might ask you about primary effects or secondary effects, and of course you can't then mention all of the things above. You have to make sure you talk about the primary effects that happen straight away, or the secondary effects as a result of the primary effects, or they might ask you things like the social, to do with people, economic, to do with money, environmental, to do with the environment, physical, the things that were naturally there. You need to make sure you know the difference. You need to know the definitions of these words, so that if they do ask you that question, you can answer it. Now, in this paragraph here, I've talked about ways you can go back and remember that information in the paper copy of your revision guide. Use a highlighter to highlight the key words. Make sure, as it says here, that you read through the case study. Read through it aloud, in other words, out loud like I'm speaking now, paying close attention to the way it sounds. Read the effects column again. Cover it up. Can you repeat it without looking at it? Check to see how many you got right. Read it again if you didn't get many. Now, as I say, we also need to know, why do people still live near a volcano? Why is it that people live near volcanoes if they know there's a chance they're going to get killed? And this is the information here, and here's a case study about Vesuvius and the plain of Campania, but using the same kind of things that's in this bullet point. Now, what I've said down in this paragraph is try and use a mnemonic to remember it. Now, the mnemonic I used was FHHMJ, so the lads mag, FHM. I'll try to make it into like that, but to be honest, it's not very good, I understand that. So try and make your own up. But the F stands for fertile soils. When the lava weathers and wears down, you get fertile soils, which is very good for growing crops. There's jobs in tourism, so people go there to get jobs. Minerals, things like sulphur and pumice can be got from volcanic areas. Hot springs for bathing and heating. Heat used to generate electricity through geothermal energy. Now, Vesuvius and the plain of Campania would be your case study of this, why people live near volcanoes. And again here, if you can talk about being specific, so instead of saying fertile soil is good for growing crops, in this area of Vesuvius, they grow wheat, tomatoes, peaches, almonds and vines with yield 5 times higher than they would get elsewhere nationally. The tourism, the trips to Vesuvius and the hot springs, the museums of Pompeii and Herculaneum. Minerals, the sulphur wasteland nearby. Now it says here, remember, for some people it may be the best farmland available. That was the case, as it says in Montserrat and Vesuvius. Some people may not be able to afford to move anywhere else. You know, they were brought up there. If you've been brought up there, if that's where your parents live, that's where you're going to live. So these are other reasons why people might live near volcanoes.